You ever think to yourself, like, why Rick Barnes? No, really, like, why Rick Barnes? I think there's so many tangible things that you could point to, but I think it goes deeper than that. I think when you get to the foundation of it, that's where you discover why players like Chaz Lanier don't connect, why a player like Jemai Mashak stays all 4 years, and why they were just able to get one of the top recruits in program history, and Nate Ahmet, to choose Rick Barnes in Tennessee.
Good families, and they come in knowing what we expect, and but they expect it from themselves too. That just needs to be reemphasized daily to them.
I'm Paige Dauer. This is the Field Pass on Full Disclosure. I think that sentence right there tells you everything you need to know, but without context, without examples, it probably feels like a throwaway statement or doesn't feel as impactful as it should. But I think when you break it down into 4 separate segments, it tells you everything you need to know. We'll start with part 1.
Good families.
They come from good families, and I think that's why you can instantly feel like this family-like connection and vibe from the players. It's why you get an Igor Milicic early in the season, and he's like, "We're just a great group of guys." Or you have, Dalton Connect or Chaz Lanier last year, where they like instantly band together with the team that they're now a part of. You could remember Chaz Lanier when he got to Rocky Top at midnight, like the whole team's waiting for him at the facility, and it's interesting and really unique how fast that happens, right? Like he goes from being a stranger to kind of like this acquaintance, as someone they're hopeful for during the recruiting process. And then the second he's in that orange and white, it is totally family and come from these good families. They understand how to be, like, let's say, hospitable and inclusive to set the tone. That allows like this near immediate connection. I think most of us can remember back just a couple of weeks ago during the postseason for baseball and softball, and you consistently saw a different mix-up of the players at both baseball and softball games this postseason.
We had a great group of guys. Love to be around them. We interact outside of basketball. We have team gatherings, so it's been much love, much fun.
Which is why when summer workouts start, the associate head coach and Justin Gainey tells me his favorite part is just being back together.
Just hanging out with them, probably more so the time off the court than on the court, because when we don't have practice, you don't really see them a lot just because they got so many other things going on with classes and weights and all of that. But it's the time before and after practice you get to hang out with them and joke around.
Part 2.
They come in knowing what we expect.
I think that's the most important part to this formula. Not everybody is for Rick Barnes, and Rick Barnes doesn't want just anybody. The way he coaches his players, the standard for the program, the goals that they want to achieve, it's not easy to meet or uphold. I think that's why his program is one of just 4 schools that's had a player selected in 6 of the last 7 NBA drafts, why his players are constantly up for conference and national awards like Chaz Lanier, the Jerry West Award, Dalton Connect, SEC Player of the Year, Zakai Ziegler, Defensive Player of the Year, and then last season, he and Jemai Mashak finalists for the Naismith Defensive Player of the Year. And Rick Barnes' teams are responsible for 2 of the program's 3 Elite 8 appearances. You could go on and on and on, but because of that, you understand that not everybody is for Rick Barnes. Not everybody fits this mold. And while maybe that standard and the expectation gets refined in practice, sometimes it kind of just starts on its own, because when you come from good families and then you know what they expect out of you, it's kind of easier to know that like you're around like-minded people, and it's easier to uphold those standards when you know like practice is going to be competitive because everybody else is kind of like you. They all want to find a way to achieve these goals with a similar route and mapping out of the execution in mind. Sometimes you kind of notice it right away too, and it reminds me of this conversation between like me, Zakai Ziegler, and Jemai Mashak, and it's all about setting that tone, right? Well, for Zakai Ziegler, he was so floored and flabbergasted with the intensity that Jemai Mashak practiced with in their first practice ever together at Tennessee that he thought he was a 5th year, and just the way that they interact after that kind of tells you everything you needed to know what like the next 4 years would look like.
I went to Chick-fil-A, and I was just, talking to him in the car, and then he told me, he's like, yeah, I'm a freshman. And I was like, man, what? I thought you was like a 5th year. Like, I thought you was older. Like, his body, he was bigger than a lot of us, especially freshmen coming in, and how hard he played and, how he played the game. So I was like, man, I was really impressed by it.
Talk about setting the tone for the next 4 years. And I think for, Coach Rick Barnes and company, being able to find guys like that, kind of ends up being like the blueprint to what they want the culture and the team to look like moving forward.
We've had a core that's been intact, that's been here, that understands Tennessee and the culture that we've developed.
And what was true 4 years ago is still true today.
He only recruits tough guys. Pretty sure if you weren't able to handle it, you wouldn't be able to come here.
Part 3.
They expect it from themselves.
This is really an extension of part 2, and maybe even more so what Amari Abrams said in that last soundbite. Rick Barnes is a really tough coach, but he and the coaching staff have this incredible ability to get every ounce of talent out of their players. Kind of like think about it like squeezing an orange, right? Like you think you've got all the juice out of it, and then you're like, hey, mom, like, can you get a little more? And somehow she finds more. That's Rick Barnes. The second you think you've got nothing more to give, he finds more. But it's rarely a pleasant process, right? Like that orange is usually like obliterated once your mom's done with it. But the final product, oh, it's so good. That's kind of how Rick Barnes is with his players.
We lay it out to them, like to be great, to do what you're trying to do is going to be hard.
Okay, one more like kind of like food reference. I might be kind of hungry, and we'll see kind of what we have for lunch after this. But it goes back to like the NBA episode where we're talking about Chaz Lanier and Jemai Meshack bringing like this type of hunger to the NBA that the league has been missing. That's kind of what Rick Barnes is able to do with these players, especially those oftentimes that transfer in and are using their last year of eligibility and putting all their trust into Rick Barnes and his system to try to reach that next level. And what was true for the last 2 transfers that, came in and just like were like a flash in the pan and just gave Tennessee all of this excitement, it's still true with the new transfers. And you can see that trust being reinforced, maybe even in the recruiting pitch or just the results that they're able to get on the court. And that's what we see from Amari Abrams as well.
That's my last year. I wanted to make it special. And I've never been to an NCAA tournament, so it's one of my main focuses.
Right, so squeezing the orange, not a pleasant process. Product is so good. Let's look at Dalton Connect at Northern Colorado. His last season there, he's about 38% from 3. Then he comes to Tennessee, he's nearly 40% from 3. So his production, which was already pretty good, gets a level better, even when the level of competition is kind of skyrocketed. I mean, that's what the players are looking for. They want that untapped potential. They want to be able to find a way to access what they thought was inaccessible. And I think that's why you hear these players talk about, like, it's such a blessing to be here because they know if they really buy into the system, that could be them.
Every kid wants to play in the SEC. Every kid wants to play on an Elite 8 team. I mean, who doesn't want to play for Rick Barnes, Hall of Fame coach? So it's definitely a blessing.
Part 4.
Reemphasize daily to them.
And if you're still with me, thank you so much. You're like actually making my day. But Rick Barnes says it needs to be re-emphasized to them daily. I think this is like a little tongue-in-cheek. You probably could have some fun with it. On the surface, of course, you would imagine it'd be him yelling at his players, right? Just go back to a couple episodes ago where we talk about the welcome to Tennessee moment, and it's Amari Evans talking about how he thought maybe if he just had 99% of the details down in June, that'd be fine. And he quickly learned that, no, Rick Barnes wants 100% attention to detail and execution even in June, because if you slack in June, how are you going to achieve what you want to achieve in April, right? Like, practice makes consistency.
He wanted me to catch the ball at the top of the key, and I caught the ball in the slide. And he screamed at me so hard.
But I think if you go a level deeper to maybe what he really means and why players love playing for Rick Barnes so much is because he's not reemphasizing in this essence of like yelling and shouting. He does it a lot, and a lot of the time it's warranted. But you could even go back to last season with Chaz Lanier, and I think it might have been after like the Arkansas game. He talks about how like every conversation he has with Rick Barnes, he holds it dear. There were a lot of times where you could infer, or they would just kind of just tell you, like, they have a lot of one-on-one time together. He coaches and loves like a father. And I think that's why after the Elite 8 game, why those players were so distraught and why you heard Jemai Meshack and Sakai Ziegler crying so profusely at the podium, because like they wanted it so bad for their head coach. They wanted it so bad for Rick Barnes. You don't get reactions like that from your players if you're just a hard coach and you just yell at them and you wear them to the bone. You get that when like they know that you love them and that you care for them and it is like a family. Because obviously these players are upset and distraught because they had their own goals that they wanted to achieve. They put in so much hard work. I mean, Rick Barnes isn't out there putting up free throws or trying to get a 3-point shot. It's the players. So they themselves feel like they let themselves down, but even bigger, they feel that they let their coach down. Of course, Rick Barnes doesn't want them to feel that way because he was so proud of them and is so proud of them and really enjoyed coaching those players, as we heard him talk about a number of times throughout the season. But that type of emotion doesn't happen just because of accolades. It happens because he is a complete coach and it is a complete program and a complete system. So I think when you understand all of that and then you look at the new guys that are coming back, the returners, you get JP Estrella back from injury and you have good depth on the team and you've got top recruits, whether out of the portal or high school, like this team should be really exciting. And I think that they should probably be better than they were last season. Does that mean a Final Four appearance? I'm not sure, but I definitely think that means more regular season success, no doubt. And maybe gets them better equipped for the postseason. But Wednesday at 11, it's the mark of July 1st, the last month without Tennessee football. If you're still here, give me some sneaky games that you think might give Tennessee its second or third loss on the season, because we're talking about win-losses on Wednesday. So I'll talk to you guys then at 11.